Hi there folks, it's Zach and welcome back to my video series on the Knights of the Old Republic, the Fallen Empire storyline. So, here's what's going on. Right now I'm starting up on Chapter 2, and today I'm doing it a little differently. I actually recorded the entire chapter and then I'm doing the narration ex post facto after the fact. So I'm doing the narration to the gameplay I already did and trying to fill you in that way. So anyway, the last time we left our Jedi Knight, we finished Chapter 1. If you jumped right from Chapter 1 to Chapter 2, then you don't have to do this little bit that you're seeing me do here. I actually exited out of the chapter so I could make a clean break for the first video, and then come into here straight after making a few changes. So I'm actually, if you look at my Jedi Knight really closely, he's actually wearing a different belt, he's got different bracers, etc. Anyway, at this point in the storyline, we are in a dreamlike sequence, but that's not going to stop you from having to fight anybody. We do have, some things to fight and face during this chapter.
I followed you here so we might speak undisturbed.
I don't have time for you.
On the contrary, time is all you have. Use it to evolve. You're true believers. You gave their lives purpose and meaning.
Kind of like this shot here. If you're ever interested, before you actually start up the Knights of the Fallen Empire storyline, you can tailor the clothes on all your companions so that this shot looks a little cooler. I actually have some set armors on some of my guys here, like Rusk. He's actually wearing a trooper set of armor that I put him in. Kira's got her own specialized armor that doesn't color match for the scene. I don't know why. Something about that dancer set that you buy on the fleet glitches sometimes. It shows in cutscenes that she has like this black webbing underneath it, or sometimes it'll not color match appropriately. So that always looks a little weird. Her natural set, though, that she just comes with, always looks good in cutscenes, so I always actually keep a copy of that in my inventory.
Withers when it is neglected.
Just, for story purposes. I record things a lot.
Too long. Love will seek another.
We'll be together again.
Each day they drift further out of reach.
Anyway, one of the nice things about this chapter is we stop looking at Valkorian as this gigantic force-eating, planet-eating ghost and start seeing him a little bit more as a person. And one of the things about this expansion was to try and get back into the story elements. And I actually find that the storyline between the Jedi Knight and Valkorian is extremely strong, because you've had the Jedi Knight actually slay Valkorian's host bodies before. So they've had face-to-face time that a lot of the other character classes never got. And it does lean itself to them having a little bit more of a relationship. Alright, so now we have some combat. The enemy types in here are pretty much weak. I'll put a little annotation of exactly what you're facing. But I find it odd that during this dream sequence, actually, you're facing Sky Troopers of all things. I just don't think that would be in the nightmare my character would be having. I actually think they have some more appropriate nightmare-type bad guys in here later. But to see Sky Troopers be jumping in, I was like, nah, I would think that the things to be seeing in this carbonite-fueled dream would be more, Sith appropriate. Just because he's spent so much time fighting them, and he's only even seen Sky Troopers now, story-wise, just once for a few minutes on his ship right before the Eternal Fleet knocked it right out of the sky. But alas, BioWare wants you to be fighting these new enemy types, so you'll be fighting these new enemy types. They're still pretty weak in this chapter. If you notice, I'm cutting through them pretty much like a hot knife through butter. You'll find that at just about any level, because they still expect you to be learning, but you will notice that they'll start throwing a little bit more at you this chapter. So right now we're facing our first strong type here. Depending on how close you get to him, you may have to take on those two weak ones as well. Not a big deal, but, three at a time. Now here's something interesting. Here, these two guys who are going to appear here were actually former bosses in the Jedi Knight storyline. So I feel like these guys make a lot of sense to see here right now, because these guys would have a lot to do with the shaping of our Jedi Knight. And any character class you play, the two people who appear there will be two of the former bosses from your storyline, which is kind of cool. I like that as a throwback to remind you of where you've been as a Jedi Knight, or whatever your character class is at this point. Yeah, it's a pretty short chapter. It's only about 16 minutes.
Life walking the Jedi path. This is where it led. Was it worth the journey?
The Order warns against forming attachments, but I can't let them die.
I know I've mentioned before too that I'm trying to do as many light side options because this character's a light side character, but if I think there's a more interesting conversational option that he would pick, I'll go ahead and be picking that for these cutscenes.
How you could serve politicians.
Stand aside. I will not be swayed from my path.
I offer help. You seek shelter you do not need. There is greatness in you that
That's a very Darth Vader callback position right there. I don't know if you guys are noticing some of this in the cinematography that BioWare has tried to put in here, but there's a lot of very not subtle and some very subtle throwbacks to the original trilogy that they did here, where they'll even just have characters take the same positioning, like you saw Valkorian do there, just like Darth Vader in Empire Strikes Back talking to Luke. A lot of what he's looking for out of the Jedi Knight here falls in line with the idea of what the Emperor and Darth Vader both wanted from Luke. You know, it's a not subtle throwback that I kind of dig.
forgive you.
Don't come any closer.
They will not listen. They want you dead. Republic. Empire. The eternal throne conquers all. You cannot stop it. Save yourself.
Millions dead because of you!
Yeah, there was a pause there when you come out of that cutscene before you can actually act, which is why you kind of saw my character just stand there. But again, a few more weak type bad guys. If you actually look around though, and I don't do this with my camera, what you're seeing is me actually running through a mock-up of the areas on Coruscant, which is kind of cool. But you're now seeing it in rubble and in ruins. This is actually where you get one of the first speeder points on Coruscant, except now that middle platform's actually dropped out, and we're just running along the edges here. It's kind of cool. I like if you're just running through the game, you may not particularly notice that. Also, if you just made one character at level 60 and you never actually been to Coruscant yet, then you wouldn't appreciate it. But you know, that's cool. I'm just kind of letting you know what you're running through is actually some of the game map that we've used previously, but now it just looks all different. And this makes a lot of sense, like why this would be here right there. Because Coruscant is one of these places that does have a lot of meaning to, you know, the Jedi Knight, or you'll do it a Dromund Kaas if you're an Imperial player, and that has a lot of meaning to those players. You go there for many times in the storyline, love it or hate it, you just have to go there. And so seeing it in ruins does kind of hit you in the gut. All right, now this is the first, you know, elite type enemy you got to face here, and if you are whatever your character class is, it's going to be the hero of your faction. So in this case, I'm a Jedi, and therefore I'm fighting Satele Shan. But if you're a bounty hunter, you're facing Mandalore. If you are a Sith, then you're facing Darth Maul. And it's kind of a nice little throwback to whoever your character class is, storyline, you know, faction leader is. That is who you face in that moment. And it's kind of a nice way of Valkorian trying to pitch you against somebody you would have looked at as a hero and now are looking to see if you are taking their place. Weirdest way to get out of that cutscene now. Have a derelict ship fall on top of you. Still don't really understand the symbolism of that one. Alright, so now we've shifted locations. I guess that was just the only semi-graceful way they could try to find a scene change. Anyway, now we have a quick, you know, strong type bad guy and this is actually a monolith. We saw these on Zeost. Also, you might note that he is able to be bioanalyzed, which is why I had to take my character and cheer there a little bit. Just so you know, if you have bioanalysis, you can totally like sap that guy for materials. We're almost to the end of this chapter, by the way. The next enemy we're going to fight is the last enemy of this chapter, and it is a champion level bad guy. You don't have a companion healing you, except for Valkorian occasionally tossing you your way, but he's not really anything to get too worried about. He looks, his bark is definitely worse than his bite. What you'll see here with my character after this cutscene is I just want to focus in on a couple things. One, I don't want to be in front of him when he does his AoEs in front or his swipes, so I'm constantly kind of moving behind him to do a lot of my damage. And, you know, two, I just don't really stop. I want to just keep pounding on him until he dies. He doesn't have huge amounts of armor like a lot of champion level bad guys do, and since I don't have a companion or I don't have anybody really dependably healing me, I really want to focus then on my best defense being a really good offense.
Even you.
Our flesh is not who we are. Voices, hands, children. I no longer require those crude vessels. At long last, I am truly free.
Your freedom cost millions of innocent lives. You're nothing but a monster.
I am a part of you, now more than ever.
In Chapter 1, if you decided that, yes, I'll kneel to Valkorian, and yes, try to accept you know, what it is he's laying down, then in the subsequent chapters, you have more and more options to go ahead and accept using his powers. You don't see it too much here, and honestly, he likes it a little bit more if he feels like he's pulling you more and more under his sway. But you know, trying to get him to give you power in this moment does nothing for this fight. So one way or another, you're still fighting this thing under its own steam. That's not necessarily the case for some later fights. Vigilance for the win. Here we go. It's a larger version of the model we fought earlier, so you can see I'm going to run through his legs and be behind him for that gigantic AoE he does in front. He's already down 50% by this point. I'm going to eat a few shots here, but kind of see him moving around. And he's already toast. Like I said, it's not as hard a fight as you think, and he is also bioanalyzable, if that's a word. Alright guys, that's going to be it for my narrations, guys. That's the end of this chapter. I'll just let you watch out the cutscenes, but as you can see, it's not too tough, it's pretty short, and it's going to lead you into the next chapter where you have some more major revelations. So I hope you guys like this. Please like my channel and subscribe if you're enjoying this video series, and I will go ahead and keep cranking these out. If you have any questions about what you're facing in the chapter or some tips and tricks and strategies on how to face them, just ask your questions below and I'll go ahead and answer them for you. Alright, hope you guys have a great one, and I'll see you next time.
The eternal throne, the new seat of power in the galaxy.
It can't be. I've only been gone.
Longer than you think. Zakul has surpassed my expectations. The most powerful fleet in history, and an army of guardians who use the forces more than light or dark. But my children abuse their power.
What did you expect? You're their role model.
I was different here. Abandoning my past let me experience pleasures I didn't myself before. I couldn't love on Zakul. Who knows? Even you may find it.
I committed my life to someone. Your children forced us apart.
A reunion may yet be possible. We must deal with my errant son and daughter before they ruin everything.
I knew you wanted something. You can't stop them alone.
They are deadly, and worse, lack discipline. Do not underestimate their threat. It will take both of us to undo the damage they can inflict.
Your daughter sees me.
Valen was always my favorite.
What is it?
Interesting.
Your daughter doesn't trust your son.
She trusts no one.
I'm dying.
We are being reborn.
Wake up. We have to go.